and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis.
A pleasant welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another edition of Hello Pastor with Reverend Dr. Chandler Freeman. My name is Dennis, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Hello Pastor, we're going to be dealing with some important questions. And the topic or the main question we're going to be dealing with is, what really is God's involvement into human affairs, into our affairs as people? What fish does God have to fry in our business? Our presenter for this show, Hello Pastor, is Dr. Chandler Freeman. Reverend, welcome to the show.
Brother Dennis, thank you so much. It's always a privilege and an honor to be here with you. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And you can also follow Reverend Dr. Freeman on the Gospel Rich TV on YouTube and Instagram. He is a Bible teacher, a businessman, a pastor, a counselor, a husband, and also a father. This show, we call that Hello Pastor, is when we sit down with Reverend Dr. Freeman and talk about those questions, very tough questions that not really discussed, and some easier questions. They've really been discussed, but they have not been explained to the fullest. Last week we were here and we started with the question of God. How many gods are there? Which God is the right God? I mean, through which God should I, or through which religion should I go to get to God? We still want to continue this thing about God. And this time we want to say God's involvement into our affairs. And when I'm talking about God, this is the God that we know in the Southeast as Yeshua. The Basel people know him as Glipo. The Manon people know him as Wura. The Pella people know him as Nangala, and so on and so forth. That's the God I'm talking about. So, Pastor Freeman, again, welcome to the show. Let's talk about God. What fish does God have to fry in our business? That's the question. You like that? I see you smiling.
I'm excited, Brother Dennis. You know, I'm even more excited about how you were able to go and talk about the names of God in our the beautiful thing in Acts chapter 2. It said we heard the manifold wisdom of God in our own language. And when you started to talk about all the names of God in the Liberian language, it got me a little excited.
That's good. So we tonight I want us to that's what I want us to talk about. God, you know, these questions about God, about the Bible, about religion, those questions are always there. And that's why I'm happy that we are happy to get you here to say, let's talk about this thing. So let me start by asking you, from ever since I was a young man, we know that God created us. So let me start from there. Why really did God create us? What does he expect in return by creating us? I mean, for what purpose did he create us? I often hear, we want to worship God. Did God create us? It's a quid pro quo. So let's start from there. Why did God create us, and what does he expect from us?
That's a beautiful question. In fact, that's a wonderful question. But let me focus on different angles. So the question is a beautiful question. But so what does God want from me now that he has created me? The first thing it has to do now with the purpose of man. The purpose of man. I think, Brother Dennis, in Genesis chapter 2, we see that there was no rain in the Garden of Eden, because the text is clear. There was no rain because God had not created man to cultivate the garden. So question number one, man has the responsibility of being the manager of all that God has created. When God created man, Brother Dennis, and put man in the Garden of Eden, God made man a steward. So expectation number one, God expects man to be a faithful manager of the things that has been committed or the things that have been put into his charge. And so what does God expect for us? God expects us to manage the resources, the gift, the land, the world that he has given to us. And so man's first responsibility in the Garden of Eden, Brother Dennis, is to be a top manager of the garden. That's responsibility number one.
But yes, he created us and he gave us a job to do. But what does it benefit him or her, if one may say, to I mean, it still really doesn't answer the question of why did he really create us?
Well, the question is very simple. Fellowship.
With him or
Fel-
with one another or what?
God created us to have fellowship with him.
Why?
So
Was it boring in heaven?
no, definitely no, it's not. It's not. God created us because that's the Revelation chapter 4 passage. It says, "You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory, honor, and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." So the Revelation passage is clear in telling us that God created us, all things, for his pleasure. And part of that is that now pleasure means that we can worship him. Pleasure means that we can have fellowship with him. Pleasure means that now we can have communion with God. Now, the question concerning was it boring in heaven? No, it wasn't boring, because when we talk about the triune God, when we talk about there was the triune God has relationship within himself as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's why you see later on in the Genesis 10 passage with the Tower of Babel, God said, let us. That's God having a conversation within the God. It wasn't a conversation that had to do with angels. And so, Brother Dennis, in terms of your question, why were we created? We were created to have fellowship with God. In the wisdom of God, God created us to have fellowship. God created us to be top managers of the world that he had turned over to us to manage. God created us also to worship. And that Revelation chapter 4 passage, verse 11, I just read, thou hast created all things for thy pleasure. They are and they were created. And so the question today has to do with the involvement of God in our affairs. God becomes involved, Brother Dennis, in our affairs first by virtue of the fact that he created us. And so as we are beginning to get into this topic today of God's involvement in our affairs. But Brother Dennis, let's talk about God's involvement in terms of his name. How do we know that God is involved, right?
And we'll get to that, because you mentioned something about fellowship. So
Yes.
God created us for us to fellowship.
Yes.
What if that doesn't happen? What if even though he created me for this fellowship, what if I don't want to fellowship with him? What becomes of me?
Oh, Brother Dennis, the thing is that that's a beautiful question. Let me deal with that issue. And so there is what we call original design of a thing. And so when God creates us, he has a plan. He has a purpose in mind. Now, that's what original design is all about. When the individual, Brother Dennis, refuses, because the individual has a choice, that's the power of choice. But when the individual refuses to worship God, to have fellowship with God, Brother Dennis, what we notice happens is that there is a part of the individual that lacks what it means to commune with God. And that's that what is missing. Even Augustine in the confession, he talks about how God created us. He says, in our souls, and St. Augustine of Hippo says, you have created us, God, and our souls are restless until they find rest in thee. This is the idea that the individual, there's a vacuum. And you see, Brother Dennis, that's why people trying to fill all that vacuum with so many different things. And only God, only fellowship with God, only communion with God can fill that part of us that only God can fill. And that's what Augustine says in the Confessions. He says our souls are restless until they rest. God doesn't force us. But when we embrace fellowship with God, it brings a fullness. It brings a meaning, an existential meaning to our life. There is a satisfaction. There's a sense of completeness that only that vacuum within the human, that only God can fill. And so that's what Augustine in that quotation says, our souls are restless. And John in Revelation says, you've created all things for your pleasure. They are, and so thou art worthy, O Lord. The psalmist puts it in a word. He said, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. And so there is a part of us that yearns, that is not complete. Oh, my soul, bless the Lord, oh, my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. And so there's a part of us that has a vacuum. There's an emptiness. There's a loneliness until the fellowship with God has been united.
I don't want to stretch it too far, but what I'm looking at as you were explaining that is, okay, this whole fellowship thing now. So yes, I have that vacuum. What does that lead to? Does it lead me to being burned, after I die, or I can live with that vacuum and move on with my life and live life to the fullest? Or am I not going to actually realize the goals I set for myself in life because of that vacuum? What is the impact of that vacuum?
But the impact of the vacuum, Brother Dennis, is life without God. The impact is so Jesus said, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And so the vacuum is that it's not that you cannot set goals. It's not that the individual is not going to be able to accomplish goals. But what is really, really missing, the missing factor is living a life without God and all that God can bring to your life. And so that's the problem. You can live without God, but the way that you should have been living, Brother Dennis, let me isn't it interesting you bring up this question? But let's illustrate the question that you brought up, okay? Let's say Chevy, Brother Dennis, let's say you have a Chevy Suburban. And Chevy said that and gave you an instruction. Chevy creates a Suburban, Brother Dennis, and tell you, say, this is the instruction on how you can maximize the fullness of this particular vehicle. Brother Dennis, you don't think it's important for you to experience everything this vehicle is all about, for you to follow that instruction?
It's important.
And so that's what the Bible is. The Bible, in the Bible, we have instructions on how we can live abundantly, in a satisfying way, in a more complete way, in a meaningful way, in a purposeful way. And the problem today is that, yes, Brother Dennis, you can refuse. It's just like if you have, Brother Dennis, an Apple phone. There's some things in that Apple phone, if you don't read the manual, that you can use the phone, but it doesn't mean there's certain things in that phone, you won't be using the phone to all the ways that you can use it. And so relationship with God is so vital. Yes, you can live without God. You can choose to live without God, but fulfillment, the way that the pleasure that he brings to our life, the fullness he brings to our lives. And Jesus says it in this way that is so capturing. He said, I've come that you may have life, and life in its fullness, life in abundance. The way that the victorious, the successful life that God brings to our life, the individual will not be able to experience that. Brother Dennis, isn't it fascinating that you see celebrities dying from drug overdose? You thought they had everything, right?
Right.
From Whitney and to Ike Turner, we thought they had everything, but what didn't they have? God, the relationship with God that brings peace and fulfillment. Why are they killing themselves? And you think they have everything? No, they don't have everything. They didn't have the peace of God. They didn't have that presence of God that causes you to not give up on life, that causes you to be able to be hopeful. And so living life without God, Brother Dennis, can be very hellish, can be so unsatisfying.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is our brand new program, Hello Pastor, where we sit with Pastor Reverend Dr. Chandler Freeman and ask some questions and get some answers. And hopefully, we want you also to join in and ask these questions. Our topic today is God's involvement in human affairs. So let me start by asking you this, and what is expected of God in our daily activities? Every day I get up from the morning to night, there are certain things that I do, even as an individual, as a family, from January to December, as government, as people, as organization. What is expected of God in our daily activity? Is he expected to direct, to influence, or just sit by, and watch this kind of laissez-faire attitude? What really do we expect?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So let's start first with Brother Dennis. Let's start with establishing, let's start for the record that God is involved in our affairs. Okay. Let's start with the fact that, let's start with the premise that God is involved in our affair. But how do we come to that particular conclusion that God is involved in our affair? First, we come to that conclusion based on the name of God. It says that his name is Emmanuel. And that particular passage, Emmanuel, is that name of God that he's involved, God with us. Yeah. So how do we come to the conclusion that God is with us and that God is involved in our affair? Well, we have a name of God, a distinct name of God that gives us the guarantee, the assurance. It is very, very consolating that he is with us. So that's the first thing that when it comes to, is God with us, right? Yeah. So number one, now that we have established that educational foundation that God with us, now you go to the question of expectation. So right. God with us, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it says that God provides, first of all, God provides guidance. That's the first thing, right? Right. When we acknowledge him, they say, acknowledge him in all your ways, Brother Dennis. The Proverbs 3 says, when we acknowledge him in all our ways, he is the one that is going to direct. So in terms of guidance, number one of the benefits of God's involvement in our life, Brother Dennis, let this be our key word for today, benefit. Brother Dennis, you know, when you have a job, you got that benefit package on your job, right? Right. Okay, so God's involvement in our life has benefits. Psalm 103 says, and bless the Lord and forget not his what? His benefits. Benefits. So God's involvement, Brother Dennis, in our life, there are benefits to God's involvement. But number one that I like to highlight from the proverb, it says, when we acknowledge him in all things, he is going to direct. Brother Dennis, we need direction when it comes to critical things. How do I know that this is the right spouse for me? How do I know this is the right business venture for me? How do I know this is the right partner? How do I know this is the right city for me to be doing this particular project in? And so that's when we go to God in prayer. That's when we read the word of God to seek guidance. One of the benefits, it says, is that God
you keep using we, right?
when I use the word, when I use the word we, when I use the word we, I'm talking about those who have decided now.
Because that's why I'm coming to. So,
those who, Brother Dennis, those who have made the choice, because it's a choice. Following God, Brother Dennis, let me tell you something. An individual tells you that, like, if your job might have a 401k benefit, right?
Yeah.
But Brother Dennis, suppose you don't sign up for it.
You don't get it.
So,
but you don't benefit.
Brother Dennis, suppose you decide that the job has a medical benefit, but you decide that you're not going to use that medical benefit.
You're on your own.
You are on your own. And so, when it comes to the things of God, there are benefits when it comes to God's involvement in our life, including God intervention, God involvement. But Brother Dennis, we have to first understand that these things first exist. Brother Dennis, if you don't know that something exists, it's difficult to even be able to usage of something. First come from the knowledge that it exists, right?
So this involvement is for people that are Christians, or people that are saved, or people that are righteous. Let me put it that way. If this God involvement is restrictive, it's not everybody.
But Brother Dennis, that's Brother Dennis, that's an interesting way how you're putting it. First of all, you have the involvement in the people who are his children, right? You first of all have his involvement. The involvement is multi-layered.
Okay.
So let me start first with involvement. Number one, in order for me to break this down, Brother Dennis, I like to break this down into two categories when I talk about the involvement.
Okay.
Involvement in the lives of everyone, because he's the creator of everyone. That involvement. God in Genesis 1:1, it says he is the creator of everything, right? That's involvement number one. He is involved even in your life. Even though you say, I don't recognize him, I don't acknowledge him, it doesn't mean that he's not involved. He's involved because they say you are created in his image. So you cannot deny that your father's DNA is even in you, even if you're fighting it. So he's involved in your life by virtue of the fact that he created you.
Right.
That involvement. But then involvement, as we talk about it from a faith perspective, from the Christian perspective, is involvement because you are now a child of God, people of God. So, Brother Dennis, involvement by being created by God and involvement as a child of God, they are two distinct things. You know that, right?
Right.
So, but God is involved, like we discussed last week. He makes the sun shine on the righteous. He is the one who is the provider of everything. You understand what I'm saying? But Brother Dennis, let me tell you something, okay? Let me just discuss with you in one way how a biblical principle is working. It's not even being used by people who are. Paul talked about how when people come into the church, you're supposed to greet them with a holy kiss and be welcoming to them, right?
Right.
But Brother Dennis, Walmart is using that principle. If he is a successful principle, Walmart got greeters. But that was something that the early church started to use. So the principle of God working, right? Because that business, Walmart, they got greeters at the door. But where did that concept come from? It's a Bible concept. Greet the person with a holy kiss. Be welcoming to people. So the Walmart business decided that they were going to use that particular business principle. So the principles of God, they work for individuals who are Christian, and they work for individuals who are not Christian. If you decide that you're going to apply the principles of God, it will work. Even the individual is a Christian, it's going to work if the individual is not even a Christian. Walmart is a very successful business, and you see the greeters they have at the door, right?
Right.
Yes.
So oh, was that feedback? So the population of the world, not many are Christians. So, and we have these two layers of involvement. The one God, when He sent down the rain, is on everybody. But the second layer of involvement is faith-based.
Yes.
Over half of the world don't have that faith in the Bible faith that we talk about. So it means God is not involved in their affairs.
No, that's not what we're saying. So it doesn't mean that He's not involved in the affairs. He is involved because let me break this down at the concept. It doesn't mean that He's not involved, right? For example, who restrains evil from not taking over the world? God is at work in the world, right? God is still in control. That's the
actually I was talking about the benefits. These other people don't enjoy that benefit.
Yeah, that personal benefit.
Yeah.
That personal benefit is going to be lacking in their life because the Christian population in the world, Brother Dennis, is a little bit over 2.5. Yes, but they're not going to have that benefit that we're discussing. No, they're not going to have that. They're going to have the larger benefit, but not what we discussed in the Psalm. No, they're going to have that.
All right, let's go into some examples here, and I want to see God's involvement. How does God operate in that area? We in Liberia, we love a lot of politics. Almost everywhere you tune in, there's politics. We talk about election, we talk about this. What is God's role when it comes to elections? And let's talk about like elections in Liberia, in our political affairs. Does God take side? You know, we're going to elections, so you know, okay, we have the Christian party, or this guy who's the standard bearer is a Christian, so he's going to pray, and God is going to be on his side, or he's going to do the will of God, and God is going to prefer him. How does God really take part into our politics?
Okay, that's a beautiful question, Brother Dennis. But let's start first with you talk about how it's almost you're talking about our electoral process, right? You're talking about maybe a more democratic system, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first thing, Brother Dennis, we need to start with is an understanding of the political system. Because this particular political system, Brother Dennis, that we are talking about, it is democratic. Democracy is not a theocracy. And that is a quotation that it would be nice for you to drop it in the chart. Democracy is not theocracy. So, Brother Dennis, what you have here in our system is where it's ruled by the people. That's what a demos is all about. It's a rule, Brother Dennis, by the people. And so the people have to elect based on the information they know, based on values that they hold to dearly. And so, Brother Dennis, what you have here is that God has given us the ability. Yes, democracy is not a theocracy. God has given us, Brother Dennis, the ability to choose, to be able to reason. We have solical and mental faculties. So when it comes to election, what we have to do is to do our own research on the candidates. If a candidate come to you and tell you he's a Christian, you want to really make sure he's a Christian, because there can be wolves in sheep clothing, right? Or there can be only wolves that sometimes the only time they come to get the church vote is during election time. And so you really want to make sure is this person, we have to look at their policies, Brother Dennis. It's not just the candidate themselves, but look at their policy, look at their resume. Is the person what are they going to be doing based on a Christian value? But when you think about it's not a theocracy where the priests are the one. In a theocracy, the civil leader is God. But in a democracy, Brother Dennis, the people are the one. It's representative rule. It's elected representatives.
So God does not participate. He just takes his hands off.
No, Brother Dennis, because now it's not that God is not involved in the process, but God has given us the ability now to choose rightly.
But we want a leader after God's heart. You know, that was a prayer in the Bible.
But we the one have to select that leader, Brother Dennis. We have to look at the value. We have to look at the value of God and elect a leader that has those attributes.
But can God show us? Can God point to somebody and say, that guy?
Yes, but are we seeking him?
We got to seek him again. I thought he should actually.
Brother Dennis, Matthew chapter 7 says, seek and ye shall what? Wait, but you have to seek God for everything.
Okay. So
it's not like
if we ask God, he's able to direct us who to vote for.
God provides direction, Brother Dennis, but God provides direction that we're supposed to seek the direction. And we have to be, it comes to election, Brother Dennis, it comes, there are Christians in this country, Brother Dennis, who are Republicans, and there are Christians in this country who are Democrats, right?
Yeah.
But election, Brother Dennis, is based on the value of the candidate. Is the candidate conservative? Is the candidate libertarian? Is the candidate liberal? We have to make an informed decision after we. But Brother Dennis, you know that the Constitution of America is not the Bible.
No.
In the democratic system, we have a constitution. But we can look at the candidate policy and look at our biblical value and say, how close does it come? And then we can make an informed decision.
And that's what my question, right? What is the criteria now? Because there is no one party or one candidate that is going to embody all those values. Okay, so how close can we be? Okay, take for instance in the United States, you say, well, Republicans say no abortion, Democrats say have abortion. So based on that, this one is killing babies, this other one is not killing babies. This other one is this. What do we do? You know,
Brother Dennis, the issue here is that the situation here, you just have two options.
Right.
So in that case, it's not like you say you go and vote for the libertarian guy, even though you give him your vote, it's not going to be a vote that's going to win an election. Even though he might have everything that you like, you know that it's going to be either a Republican candidate or a Democrat candidate. But you have to vote for this individual based on what their policies, what their principles are in that life. But no candidate, Brother Dennis, no party will have everything that you want. Right. No.
And so where will God direct us in that instance? If we diligently seek him, what will he tell us?
In our seeking of the matter, Brother Dennis, you have to look at your values. Look at what is valuable to you.
No, I want to look at God's decision. I don't want to look at my ballot. I want to look at God's tender. So if I'm asking God to direct me who to vote for, Republican or Democrat, where is God going to show me and what will be the basis?
But the basis, Brother Dennis, the basis is you using the word of God as a standard, as an authority, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Brother Dennis, you start to look at the issues. You look at the personal issue, like you say, okay, what issues are important to you? Do you think, Brother Dennis, let's just start first with when it comes to the family. Do you think that if you voted for abortion or you voted against abortion, does it make the family stronger? You have to think about that decision for you.
Yeah, but for me personally, I think I should really step out.
You should stay out?
Yeah, because you it's like from the fire to the frying pan, from the frying pan to the fire, right?
But Brother Dennis, this is the thing. Because what you're dealing with is that when it comes to democracy, is the majority rule. Are the people voting? The people voting about what the interests are. The people
Right.
are voting for what they consider to be dear to their heart.
Right.
Exactly.
But
So
I go to a church and I'm a Democrat and they tell me, hey, you are baby killing guy. Don't even come here. You are unworthy. Are they correct?
well, brother, then it's the Bible, yes, the standard of the Bible. The standard is that all have sinned and fallen short of the what?
Of the glory of God.
So the standard, when it comes to the standard, is not, I'm not going to highlight one issue here, brother Dennis, in a very, very deep conversation. The thief on the cross realized, brother Dennis, who he was, and he said, Jesus, he asked for the Lord to have mercy on him. And so you can highlight one sin in an election, but when it comes to sin, the text is very clear that we all need the grace of God because all have fallen.
Let's go to another area, and that's warfare.
Sure.
Warfare. You know, there was a time in Africa where we're having war of liberation, we want independence. And then we also see that there are certain countries that are occupied by a bigger power. Like, for instance, Iraq taking over Kuwait. And so America has to go there and liberate that weaker country. We see that right now in Russia and Ukraine. We also see that there are some just bad people. They are suppressing their own people. They have them in bondage. They are treating them so bad. And so there is this righteous group, or for the lack of a better word, conscientized group. President Bush called them the coalition of the willing. That say, hey, these guys are killing their own people. In Liberia, you have a guy called Charles Taylor. He's waging war and killing people. So let's go there and free the people and stop further bloodshed, right? There's places people have weapons of mass destruction. They're going to exterminate a big population. In what instance does God support warfare, military action, killing people using M203, M16, grenade, GMG, and bombs to kill people? Does God take part in warfare?
Well, brother Dennis, let's just start first with you, brother Dennis. I'm sure you read the Ten Commandments, right?
Yeah.
And so, in one of the Ten Commandments, talk about how we shouldn't kill, right?
Right.
That means that life, human life, is so important. The sanctity, brother Dennis, of human life, right?
And Ten Commandments doesn't even distinguish between self-defense.
Yeah, we're not having gotten into that category yet. But
Okay.
we just start with a preliminary comment. But brother Dennis, when you think about liberation, Moses delivering the children of Israel, he didn't deliver them with warfare.
Really?
No. The Exodus, the children of Israel being delivered, brother Dennis, from Egypt. Moses never fought no war with the Egyptians.
But they were not delivered yet.
But brother Dennis, he did deliver them. God spoke to him in Exodus chapter 3. By the time we get to Exodus chapter 14, he's taking them to cross the Red Sea. What I'm saying to you is that we've seen liberation without warfare.
Okay.
Gandhi delivered India from the British. Brother Dennis, at that time, the British Empire was the most powerful. Gandhi could not, and Gandhi believed in nonviolence. So we have seen over and over deliverance without warfare. But let me get to the matter of deliverance with warfare. Brother Dennis, okay, let's just case instead. Charles Taylor came to deliver the people. And so he said that's the reason for the war, right? So he has a reason. But brother Dennis, this is the question in the end. So he said he has right reason. But when the warfare is going on, look at the conduct during the warfare, right? Because there are two things that you have to take into consideration when you're talking about this whole just war theory. Right reason and right conduct during warfare. But brother Dennis, let me ask you, did the liberation that he said he was coming to liberate the Liberians, were we liberated?
No.
Our state at the end, did he make our lives, brother Dennis, better?
Worse.
But brother Dennis, So what we see here is that there are individuals that say they're coming to liberate the people, and in the cause of the people, the struggle continues. But the liberation never happens that they promise. So you can promise liberation, but to actually bring liberation, where now, but brother Dennis, what did the people actually want? The people just wanted food, better housing, better jobs. In the end, brother Dennis, the liberation killed, but the liberation didn't bring more infrastructure development to the country. And so we see liberation promise, but liberation didn't actualize in the end. And so what you have is that there are promises around here about that if you join this particular cause, in the end, liberation. But brother Dennis, in the end, the people are not free. In the end, the situation gets worse. And so what you hear is basically promising something, but not really delivering. And the means by which you're going to do that, you actually bring it about destruction, even more destruction to the infrastructure that they have.
So there's no just war or righteous war.
Brother Dennis, there are individuals that, depending on who having the conversation, like the people said when they were coming to do colonialism in Africa, that they were coming to liberate. But we see that colonialism actually impoverished the continent. So, but they said they were coming to stop people in Africa from getting sick. They were coming to liberate. They were coming to bring civilization, everything. So the promise of liberation and bringing actually true liberation, there are two different conversations.
And so does God get involved? Or how does he get involved in warfare? Is he say, don't do it, do it, or...
Brother Dennis, let me give you 4 views quickly. Just give me an opportunity right now to give you 4 views when it comes to there are 4 views on just war. There are the people, brother Dennis, and I like to insert this in the chat room. I'll give you 4 views. Number 1, there are the people, brother Dennis, they call them the doves, D-O-V-E-S. These people, brother Dennis, they're Christians, but their view is no war. They are the doves, and that's Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. So they don't believe in no war. They're pacifists. Then you got the people who are the hawk. Brother Dennis, they're always looking for opportunity to get into war. The hawk, they're always trying to find opportunity to get into war. Then you have the people on the fence. They kind of undecided, because these images are very important to this conversation. But they are all Christian views, though. So the dove will never get involved in war. But the hawk, they always try to find an opportunity to get involved in war. That's the Psalm 11, verse 5. The doves are the Isaiah 2, verse 4. Then we got, brother Dennis, the individuals who are on the fence. And then finally, you also have the individuals, Christians, who say war is a last result. What that means, brother Dennis, is that it doesn't mean because somebody cursed you, you get into war because of the curse. Can we do mediation and settle the matter without going to war? War as a last result, right? Those are the 4 views. The doves, they are Christian, but they say we're never going to be in war. They are non-violent. They're pacifist. The hawk, brother Dennis, they're Christian, but they say any opportunity you give us, we're going to get into it. Then you have those who are undecided, and the final group here is those people who say we're going to get into war, but as a last result. Now, brother Dennis, this is the requirements when it comes to the whole just war. Requirement number 1, it has to have a just cause. You only get into war if there's a just cause. Number 2, the proper authorities have to declare the war. Number 3, it's a last resort. It means we try every other means We try war as a last resort. That means we try every other means. And then one of the things, number 4, to consider is the only reason we're going into war is to get peace. But some people not going into war, Brother Dennis, to get peace. They're not interested in peace. They're not interested in an outcome. They're not interested in goal. But a major part of the just war theory and requirement is that the only reason we're going into war is to stabilize the country quickly. And not let it just continue and bankrupt the country and destabilize the country. And so finally, the cost of it, the prospective cost of what will happen without intervention. Brother Dennis, those are the 5 requirements of the just war theory.
What does that mean? So what do we do? We follow the just war theory? Is that what you're saying?
No, we're saying that if we were going to use what is called a just war theory, it means that, for example, before we get into war,
right,
did we try other things, Brother Dennis, to settle the matter?
But these are theories, though. What does God say about war and our participation, our involvement? What should we do?
Well, you have human government. Romans is very clear that the government has a responsibility, right? Government's supposed to defend the people and everything. So that's very, very clear from the biblical perspective. But if God is the one who if God is interested in individual richer countries taking over poorer countries, and they're saying that they're doing it in the name of God, Brother Dennis, you know that's not. I mean, from a colonial perspective, imperial perspective, they might say that they're doing God's business, but in the end, we know that's not happening. That's empire. In the end, empire building, that's happening in the end.
I was thinking we shouldn't fight at all. Bible says, follow peace with all men.
Yeah, Brother Dennis, but that's Hebrews. You quote it from the Hebrews passage, right? That talk about pursuit. Yes. But Brother Dennis, that means that you are a pacifist. But you are a pacifist. But what will happen, Brother Dennis, if somebody came to your house now and tried to slap you?
Jesus says, show the other cheek.
Well, Brother Dennis, but that's not, in what context was it used?
Okay. Let's leave it and go to another one.
In what context?
Yeah, because I want to talk about spies. I want to talk about espionage, cyber warfare, and all those things. There were spies that were sent to spy on Jericho, and those guys were godly guys, right? So today, will God support any form of reconnaissance, any form of spying on your enemy, or espionage? Going to get secrets and all these different things. Where does God stand?
But Brother Dennis, let's start with the question number 1. Who, according to who, is that individual the enemy?
I
Because Brother Dennis, because the question, if you ask me, Pastor Chandler, who is the enemy? I know who my enemy is, the devil. But if you say the Bible is very clear, Brother Dennis, that we wrestle not against flesh and what?
Blood.
Because sometimes you can think that this person is the enemy, but that person is not the enemy. And sometimes it's very interesting when people say that's the enemy. Who comes up with, because the Bible is very clear on, they say we should be sober-minded because the devil. So it's very, very clear from a biblical perspective who the enemy is, if we're talking from the Bible now. But now when you're talking about geopolitics with different countries where you say, oh, the people to the left, my enemies, the people to the east, my enemies, that's a whole completely that different conversation. So in terms of making the determination who the enemy is, Brother Dennis, but who comes up with that this person is your enemy?
Because that person is oppressing other people, maybe.
Okay, so like for example, oppression. The Bible is very clear on the reason why you had an exodus was in God delivering the children of Israel was to emancipate the people from oppression. But then, Brother Dennis, oppression can be done in so many ways.
Yeah.
So
Economic.
you have, uh, for example, uh, let's just say let's just think about this way that is happening. You give developing countries money, and because of that, they are not even focused on developing their countries anymore because they get the money from developing countries.
Yeah.
In that sense, Brother Dennis, that money is used as a way of keeping that particular, because that country is always looking for foreign donations
Yeah.
instead of looking within to try to say, what can I do for myself? What can we do for ourselves? Or what resources have God given us for us to develop, for us to manufacture, for us to sell, for us to trade? You know, instead of getting the donors giving the money, and then later on the money is not even accounted for. So it's very interesting in things. Those are things to really take into consideration if you're really serious about developing the country from a biblical perspective.
Hmm. Let me bring another era where I want to see what God's involvement is, uh, and that's the era of sports and entertainment. Argentina just won the World Cup. I don't know if we go into this World Cup, it will be which country play harder than the other one, or it's just training. but does
That's
God really participate in sporting competition? You
Brother
know,
Dennis, the thing about it is that it's not like you have individuals in these competitions that have faith, and you
yeah,
have individuals in these competitions that don't have faith. But the game comes down to is your faith going to motivate you to practice? Is your faith going to motivate you to be a more skillful person? Let's say, Brother Dennis, the individual has faith, but the individual has no works. The book of James says faith without works is what? Let's
yeah,
just say the individual, Brother Dennis, if the individual is not practicing hard as a Messi, so the individual, but if the individual doesn't, if it's not a Christian, the individual, because the individual has faith, but the individual has to have the work to be disciplined. You can't go and kick somebody and then cause penalty. That's not discipline. So these
yeah.
are things where you will use the word of God to shift your value in those categories.
So we can't fast and pray when we go into this competition for victory.
No, brother Dennis, brother Dennis, I think that the other things we can fast and pray for, but that I mean, brother Dennis, this has nothing to do with your soul salvation. You know, this has nothing to do with these are as important as individuals make them. These are not life and death matters.
Right, but God should be involved in all our activities, not pick and choose which one is more.
No, 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 no.
Okay,
The,
this
the
one
issue
doesn't
is
need.
the issue.
So,
What we are doing now, we are using God's word to
mhm.
help us to discern God's word, to help us to shift. But brother Dennis, let me just break down a concept because it's very. I want us to be very clear on these two terms. There's transcendence of God. I mean, God is highly lifted up. There is no one like
Mhm.
Him. And then there is the immanence of God. But this is very, very clear that God is everywhere, even though He's highly lifted up. Imminence, that means God is with us in everything, and God is working. He's in control of His world. And, Psalm 24 says that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God is still involved in the world, but then we also have the Word of God to help us to shift our values, to help us to shift our thinking and our conduct and our behavior in everything.
Because I've seen pastors, we are going to a game and we sleep in the church. So is that just yeah? It's just for protection so that nobody gets hurt. Uh,
But
who
brother,
will
but,
win?
but, but, but brother Dennis, I can't speak to what other pastors are doing now, brother Dennis. It's not fair on my part because I don't know. I don't have the full story to
Okay.
be able to say. But Brother Dennis, will I do fast and prayer for a soccer game? No, but I will use soccer to keep the young people fitness, to keep the young people disciplined, to keep the young people in productive activities and all those things. Sports is very good, if the individual can incorporate faith and sports and everything. But I'm not, will I fast and pray for a soccer match? No, but I would tell the young people to be disciplined, don't get involved in drugs, but do something productive with your life. Get a soccer scholarship and be able to continue your education. There are ways that I personally will encourage individuals to get in sport. But Brother Dennis, I cannot speak to what other pastors will do, but will I tell kids to fast and pray because of winning a soccer match? Definitely not. But I will tell you, say, hey, what are the benefits of you being an athlete?
You can pray though, because
you can pray for everything.
Yeah, pray for everything. But
yes.
let's talk about music, right? Secular music, godly music, gospel music. Is God in secular music, or we not supposed, or is like far above it? Is only involved in gospel music?
Well, Brother Dennis, this is the thing, that when it comes to the music, it has to do with the lyrics of the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Brother Dennis, for me, if the music comes down to what is the music actually saying,
right?
Because I was doing a teaching the other day on We Three Kings. It's a popular. I think, Brother Dennis, you know the song We Three Kings, right?
No, it's not gospel. I'm a pastor, so I only listen to gospel.
Okay. Okay, but so
no, I'm kidding. But I don't know the music.
Okay, so basically, the words of the music said that the wise men that came when Jesus was born were three.
Mm-hmm.
We Three Kings. That's what that song is about. But Brother Dennis, when you read the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew never gave a number on the wise men. It just said wise men. So every music, the way that you judge the music, Brother Dennis, is you have to look at the content of the music. If the music, Brother Dennis, is making you feel worse about yourself, like if the music is using a B word or a nigger word, I don't know why would you want to listen to something like that that's not even healthy for your own self-image. And so when it comes to music, the criteria when it comes to music and entertainment is to listen to music that has to do with your own values, social values, and spiritual values. That's how I judge the music, Brother Dennis.
And how does God judge it?
God judged the music based on his word. So, for example, Brother Dennis, there was a song back in the day that was done by Whitney Houston, where it says, I believe the children are our future. Let them lead the way. There's nowhere in the Bible where the children are supposed to lead the way. The Bible says parents are supposed to train them in the way that they should go. So in that song, the song is good because it says children are the future. But the part of the song I disagree with is let children lead the way. No, parents supposed to train their children and bring them up in the way that they should go. The Bible says train the child in the way. So in that Whitney Houston song, it says children are the future, but then let them lead the way. No, they cannot lead the way at that particular point. If they need nurturing, they need training, they need education. So in that sense, so we have to be like this song, We Are the World. We Are the World is a song that was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie in the 80s. It says, God, in the song, it says the word God has shown us by turning stones to bread. There's nothing in the Bible where Jesus in Matthew chapter 4, Jesus. So we are the world, we are the children, we are the world. In that song, Brother Dennis, it says, God has shown us by turning stone. The temptation the devil told him was to turn stone into bread. But the song get it wrong because Jesus never turned stone into bread. So what at the end of the day, Brother Dennis, it's not the it's the content. Is it true?
Yeah.
And that's what how you evaluate the music.
Let's do one last one, which is I don't know why I'm getting the feedback. Oh, economics, right? Business, economics, trade, commerce, and everything in between. That's what I want us to talk about. I mean, is God involved in trade, in the economy, in commerce? So let me give you some examples here. There are a lot of references in the Bible about business, unfair business treatment of others, right? Proverbs 11:1 say, false weights, that's an abomination to the Lord, right? So we have powerful country preying on smaller countries with unfair trade advantages and all that. Where is God in there? Will he be on the weaker side and say, hey, you are cheating? Will countries that are exploiting others not prosper because they are, that's an abomination to the law and all those kind of things? How does God get involved to regulate trade, if I would say it that way? Sorry, go ahead again.
So you have you I will hope that I will hope that the leaders I will hope, Brother Dennis, first of all, that the leaders of the countries that you're talking about will be outspoken on these matters. That's the first thing. That's where it starts. Because if something is going on, if you're trying to trade with me, you cannot trade with me, Brother Dennis, if I don't agree. So we will hope that if a trade is going on, or if when it comes to do with those particular transactions, that the leaders of those countries will be first knowledgeable about the trade. So we have to make sure that the people that, Brother Dennis, that we send into the table to represent the countries are qualified.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Because, Brother Dennis, you cannot send a man to do a multi-million-dollar deal, Brother Dennis, who haven't even made $25,000 in his life. But you sending this man to do a billion-dollar deal, right?
Right.
The man doesn't even, Brother Dennis, you cannot send a man to do a maritime deal who stopped in 6th grade and doesn't know how to count. And so when it comes to trade with bigger countries, we have to make sure that the individuals that we are sending are even knowledgeable about the matters. Because the individuals are not even knowledgeable. But Brother Dennis, let's say a person has a PhD, but that person's PhD was in forestry. But we're talking about a deal in economics, right? So even though that person has a PhD, that person, the area there is not the specialization. And so we have to make sure that the individuals we're sending to the table, who the individuals who are representing us, are qualified and they're knowledgeable about these matters. Because the proverbs that you talk about the weights are an abomination, yes, they are. But who's going to say it's an abomination? It's the individuals who are at the table who are doing that action to say, you know what you're doing right now is not fair for my country. So that's how the negotiation has to be. We have to make sure we got individuals who are knowledgeable, who can negotiate for us in a better way than the way it's been done in the past. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Yeah, let me take some comments here. We having some issue with but first of all, are countries or people that do well in business, if these countries are doing well, or if people are doing well in business, is it because they're doing the will of God?
No. Brother Dennis, please, Psalm 73. Crooked people, the drug dealer is making money, Brother Dennis, selling drugs. It doesn't mean that because the person making money, Brother Dennis, it means that making money doesn't mean that the person is doing the right thing. The mafia is involved in a lot of clandestine activities and they are making money. If individuals that are selling drugs are making money, but it doesn't mean that in Psalm 73, it doesn't mean that because a person is prosperous, Brother Dennis, it means that that person is doing God's will. So we have to be very important, very knowledgeable. There are people who are doing bad things and they're making money. So it's not an equation for us to equate success with doing the right thing. No, is the person, the thing that they are doing, is it God honoring? Is the business, are they into shady practice? But if the person is doing shady practice, but then it's not God honoring. So it's very important that it's not because a person is successful, it means that that person is not crooked. If the person is crooked, then the person is not an upright businessman. Because Psalm 73 talks about the prosperity of the rich, but the rich are getting prosperous by oppressing individuals. So the standard, the biblical standard is, how did that person, Brother Dennis, get rich?
Let me take a few comments here. Our phone line is kind of down. Moses, Sister, God is a spirit. When we accept God in our hearts, our spirits line up with the Spirit of God. From there on, the Holy Spirit of God will guide us and lead us. And Moses continued, God-fearing people will vote for people with integrity. A righteous nation seeks righteous persons to lead.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a good thing. That you first of all have to make sure that that candidate is really a righteous candidate, because some people, Brother Dennis, come to the church just to get the vote.
Yeah. And
but what they read their policies, make sure that what they really genuine, and those are things to really take into consideration. But those are beautiful comments.
Master Quality, I don't vote for candidates who support abortion, homosexuality, destruction of the Bible, etc. I think those are his values.
Okay, yes, definitely. And nothing wrong with having those values. Those are good values to have. Those are good values.
River says, Pro, what was the aim of the first and second crusade? Was it not to liberate the Holy Land? Wasn't the crusaders blessed by the people?
Well, there's an interesting question there by River says Pro. That River says Pro is asking, but now that particular topic concerning the crusade, it didn't represent all of Christianity. So that's the first thing to provide clarity on that River says Pro is asking. Were the Christians in Ethiopia for the Coptic Church in Ethiopia at that particular time, River Pro, were they in support of the crusade? No. So some segment of Christianity can be in favor of certain things based on their understanding, but it should not be taken as though all the Christians at that time in the world were in support of the Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church. But Catholic Christianity is not the only Christianity. So, Brother Dennis, it's very important for us to establish that there are different branches of Christianity. If the Pope does something, it doesn't mean Pastor Chandler is going to follow something, because I might disagree with what the Pope is doing. I believe in marriage. The Pope believes in celibacy. So we have an understanding. We have a different understanding. You see what I'm saying right now? Yeah. I believe that a man should get married. The Pope believes that a man should not get married. So it doesn't, what River Self Pro is saying, that because the Pope says something, that means that all the Christians in the world adhere to that. That has never been the case. The Christians in Africa were believing in different things. The Pope is the leader of the church in Rome, but he's not the leader of the entire Christians in the world. So it's very important for River Self Pro to get his church history, kind of go back and so do some initial introduction on church history to get a broader understanding, because the Pope decision is not my decision. Okay.
River says, continue, during World War II, the Pope prayed for the Allied forces before the attacks, which led to the death of thousands, including women and children. Are wars blessed by God? Or people that fight war, are they doing the will of God?
But Brother Dennis, this is what we're seeing. Individuals based on their own interest take sides. That has always been the case. Individuals have always taken sides, but because the Pope pray for something, doesn't mean that it is God back. Brother Dennis, this is the question that Riverside Pro we would ask Riverside Pro. Or the question, it doesn't mean that because somebody is doing something because in the clerical capacity doesn't mean it's God back. No, the standard for something being God back is the word of God, and that's very important for that understanding for Riverside Pro to happen. We, the final authority for faith and practice, is not based on popes. It's not based on councils. It's based. The final authority is the word of God, and we make decisions not based on what the Pope is saying. And this particular hello pastor is we always going to go back to the Bible. Why do we do it? Is it endorsed by the Bible? But if the Pope is doing something, it doesn't mean that it is biblical, and that's very important for Riverside Pro to understand.
Thank you. This one for Yaya call say she said, meaning Whitney, he's gonna teach them well and let them lead the way. So,
yes. So in Whitney Houston, yes. And so my point is that even though it says teach them well, we teach the children, but the children don't start to lead the way because they're still children, right?
Yeah.
They said teach them. The children are our future. But who is leading the way? The children at this age? No. So the point I was making is teach them well. No. We continue to train them well, but they're not leading the way because they are not at the point to lead the way. They're still in the phase where they need guidance and admonition.
River says it's busy here. Is it God clear the temple of gambling? God must not like winning the Powerball.
Well, brother Dennis, just a little correction. When Jesus cleared the temple, there was no gambling going on in the temple. It's very clear what was happening. The selling of animals, money changer, but there was no gambling that was happening in the temple. So just a little correction there for Riverside Pro, that when Jesus cleared the temple, it had to do with a money changer. Just in terms of correctness, biblically accuracy, it was the money changers and people. Brother Dennis, the point of that matter was it was where the Gentiles were supposed to go in the temple and worship God, and the people had taken that particular space to sell and do selling and everything. Is that why he said my house should be a house of prayer?
River says, what becomes of that one lady who hid the spies of God in Jericho before it fell? Will she go to heaven? I think the Bible praised Rahab for doing that.
Yeah, but she's a part of the genealogy of Jesus.
Yeah.
In fact, she became a woman of faith. So it's very, very clear in terms of her destiny. She left the religion and she became a woman of faith. All right.
Master said this program is very important because it helps us put first thing first. Where do we humans spend eternity is the most important question everyone should answer. Pastor, thank you very much for giving us some clarity on these very, very important questions. Let me get your closing.
Yeah, Brother Dennis, what I want people to really do is our Gospel Reach channel, Brother Dennis. If they can just put that information, Gospel Reach TV on YouTube. If you are interested in the things we're talking about, we want you to go to our YouTube channel, Brother Dennis. That's where I'm doing teaching maybe 2-3 times a week, providing content there that's practical, relevant, engaging. We dealing with all these questions. If you can go to our Gospel Reach TV, even right now, I like people on this this show to go there to subscribe, to listen. We provide content and we deal with all these critical matters. Our Sister Masa, we believe in soul business. Yes, you can follow us on YouTube. If you can even subscribe right now, all of those listening, because that's where we're dropping the content on a weekly basis for us to grow in our walk with the Lord.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Freeman. Somebody was asking if you are related to Millie Freeman.
I'm not. Brother Dennis, there are two Freemans. There are the Freemans from Maryland, the Freemans from Cape Mount. My dad is from Cape Mount.
Okay, all right. But thank you so much. We'll continue next week, and not next week, week after next, we're going to continue. And this time, we're going to talk about heaven and hell. These are two big questions. You know,
yes.
Talk about that. Yeah. We want to talk about that, but thank you so much for coming. We want you to follow us on YouTube and Facebook. This recording is going to be on YouTube, it's going to be on Twitter, it's going to be on Facebook. Please continue to watch Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We always want to remember that we are all Liberians. So whatever you do, whatever you say, you know, we are all Liberians. Whether you believe everything that we have said or not, we are all Liberians, okay? So have a good night. We're going to close with our song that says, we are all Liberians. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Yeah. Good night.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to Brother Dennis and all those in the listening audience. Merry Christmas. Prosperous New Year to you. God bless.
Thank you. And this is our last episode for the year. So
yeah.
So happy New Year. If we don't see you again on
we'll see you. We'll cross over into the new year. We'll see you in the new year.
Right. We'll see you in the new year with another edition of Hello Pastor. A time for us to sit with Pastor Freeman and talk about this very important issue. Have a good night and God bless you.
Liberian people. Liberian.